You know, there's certain parts of Chicago you can come where you don't really know what period of time it is. It's almost like stepping back in time. And the car that we're reviewing this week also is like a step back in time. Right over my shoulder, we've got the 2018 Toyota Sequoia, but it might as well be a 2008 because it's been the same for 10 years. This 2018 model is billed as a refreshed version, but really some of the only changes are these new LED headlights and some additional safety features that are available across all the models. Other than that, it's unchanged, and when we get inside, you'll see what I mean. No matter how you slice it, this Sequoia is a big SUV. I'm 6'3". This mirrors at my shoulder right now, and you can tell just how high this thing is. This is actually a body on frame construction, so it's got a ladder frame and it's built on the Tundra platform, so this is essentially just like a pickup truck chassis. Even though this thing is so big and so tall, when you open this lift gate, that's as high as it goes. I have to duck down to get under here. I would guarantee you that if I own this, I'd be hitting my head on this pretty regularly. Another problem is you've got a button here to close it, but you have to essentially be under this thing to close it. That's kind of anxiety inducing. You're hitting the button and you think this thing's gonna come down on you. I also wonder why, if it has a motor to close, why doesn't it have a motor to open it? You have to manually open this. Not really a lot about this tailgate makes sense. If you're looking for an SUV this big, obviously you want some interior space, and you've got plenty of legroom on this second row. You notice even the way these rear seats are designed, they give you a little bit of extra knee room, and there's plenty of room in this third row as well. So you can fit a lot of fairly large people in here. One of the problems though is created by that body on frame construction. The floor is a bit higher because it has to sit on top of the frame, and because of that there's not a lot of headroom for tall people like me. One nice feature though, and it fixes the headroom problem, is you can recline this seat. Nothing's changed under the hood as well, and in this case that's a good thing. You've got this venerable 5.7 liter V8. It's got 381 horsepower. Now this engine may sound really good, as V8s do, but it's really starting to get dated as far as efficiency, and definitely doesn't quite have enough power to haul this big heavy SUV around. Well, let's go ahead and burn some gas and see how this thing does both on and off the road. Okay, now we're behind the wheel of this Toyota Sequoia and we're on an on-ramp, so let's see. This engine makes a lot of sound, but it doesn't really accelerate that fast. And again, you're not buying an SUV for performance, but you know, it is nice to have, and there's some competitors out there that are a bit quicker. Once you get up to speed, you notice the ride is pretty firm. It's actually a pretty rough ride for what would be considered a luxury SUV. And also, if you try to take any corners with this, it's so big and heavy, has a ton of body roll, really overwhelms the tires really easily. You would think there'd be a lot of space inside here, and there certainly is a lot of room this direction, but missing some headroom here, and this seat has plenty more room to go lower. There's a ton of space underneath it right now, but I've adjusted it as low as I can. It is great for being able to see out over the hood, and I think a lot of buyers that like to sit up higher in an SUV are going to appreciate this. But for someone who's 6'3", I'd love to get this seat down further. As far as technology goes, there's just not a lot in here. For 2018, they've added some active safety features. You've got forward collision alert, you've got some emergency braking, blind spot monitors, which are really actually quite good blind spot monitors. But the emergency braking seems like it kind of gets involved way more often than it should. It's calibrated with a little bit too much sensitivity. Where the technology really suffers is in this infotainment system. You've got a tiny 4.2-inch screen, which these days is really, really small, and it feels like it. Everything on the screen is kind of hard to use and read just because of how small it is. You've got JBL quote-unquote premium audio system, but it doesn't really sound that way. In fact, some other vehicles' bass stereo systems outperform this one. There are tons of little storage compartments in here, which you would expect from something like this. Even a really odd one in the center console here. You pull this little tray out, and you've got a giant pocket here, and there's actually a storage compartment hidden underneath the cup holders. I'm not sure what anyone would want to hide anything under there, but it's there. I really also wish that Toyota had spent some of their money with the refresh of this 2018 Sequoia with updating some of the interior materials. You've got some really cheap thin plastics in here, culminating in this door for the upper glove box, which feels paper thin plastic. For a $60,000 truck, it definitely falls flat on interior quality. You also notice that a lot of the buttons and interfaces are really dated as well. You've got this mirror switch over here, all of the buttons for the door controls, everything has a dated feel to it because this has been around for 10 years now. Driving around the city in this, you really get the sense that this is too big to be a city vehicle. This would be more at home in the suburbs, but let's take it off-road and see how it does there as well. We took the Sequoia to our favorite off-road park called the Badlands, and we really put it through its paces off-road. And even though this has really all-season on-road tires, it actually performed really well. It has a ton of traction. Shift on the fly, four-wheel drive. You've got an unlockable center diff here. Lots of great features that really show you this truck chassis capability off-road. You can also get a TRD Sport version of this Sequoia, which has upgraded shocks, suspension pieces, and more off-road capable tires. You can only imagine that that one would have done even better. Starting price for the SR5 version of this is in the mid to upper $40,000 range. And this Limited that we're driving, which is the top of the range, starts at $57,000 for the rear-wheel drive. With four-wheel drive and with options, this test model pushes up to almost $63,000. That's a lot of money. It opens up to a lot of competitors. Ford just retooled their Expedition, and having tested the F-150, I can guarantee you it's light years ahead in terms of interior quality and technology on the inside. The systems that are in there, definitely not going to be dated like this one is. I know I often complain about changing shifter design to some new button system or whatever else, but this particular shifter seems extremely dated in this. Just something about it just doesn't have a very sturdy feel to it. Kind of feels like it's off a 1990 Corolla. One very cool and kind of old school feature you have is this openable back window. It's really cool for cruising around, nice summer day. You can have it open back there. It's not too loud. It's just kind of a fun throwback feature. As far as power outlets go, you've got two 12 volts and only one USB with this very cheap door covering it up. You've got the aux port here as well, and only one port in the back. So it's really lacking in terms of power outlets compared to its competitors. And really glaring, I think, is missing 110 volt plug-in here. A lot of its competitors have that. For those of you who like to take your work home, this actually has a hanging file cabinet system in here where you could put hanging file folders. So you can definitely take your work home or take your work with you on the road. One thing that I personally always struggle with in some European brands, especially Audi, is no matter what you do with the temperature, if you have it on auto, it blows too cold. We're having that problem here as well. We set it at 73 and it's a nice cool day here in Chicago, but it's still blowing just frigid air on us. And we'd have to turn the temperature, we keep having to turn the temperature up. So the auto climate leaves something to be desired. The sunglasses holder that's up here is definitely big enough for old people to fit their blue blockers into. With so many other missing technology features in here, I gotta wonder why you've got a variable brightness for the light on your vanity mirror. Overall, this Toyota Sequoia is a blast from the past, and unfortunately not in a good way. There's just too much that has a dated feel to it. And if Toyota were gonna really refresh this for 2018, I wish they had done. With some of the competitors offering way more features and much more technology, for $60,000, this is one I would skip.